I created the hardest Nuzlocke in Pokemon Violet, which means fighting the Titans, Starfall bosses, gyms, and the entire postgame in order with level caps for every fight. I can't use items in battle, I can't overlevel my Pokemon, and plenty more. Pause here if you want to read the rules, and let's dive in. I adopted the best fire starter of all time, picked up a Scatterbug, and holy never mind, we're cool. I get encounters by rolling a wheel with every encounter for each area, and the rest of my early rolls were Houndour and Dunsparce, but I couldn't reach either of them. So Pikachu ended up rounding out my team before the Nemona fight, which was a pretty fast one. Close, but we got it done. After sitting through the intro of the game, which is just as engaging the 5th time you've seen it, I was off to the first gym. I backtracked to catch my Houndour, caught a Fomantis in my first raid, of which I'm allowing 1 per gym, and rolled up Weasel and a Sunkern as well. After some intense bean wrangling, I was ready to take on the first gym. Terra Fuecoco smoked her first 2 Pokemon, and then I switched him out to avoid a Fury Swipe high roll, but got hit really hard with a Fury Cutter. Luckily, Houndour outsped with an Ember to take her down. After catching Chosen 1 the Dunsparce, I evolved Vivian and then took on another raid, which turned out to be a Krogunk, who I was pretty excited about. My tap coverage was looking pretty good. Now here's where things get a little bit interesting. Instead of going for the next gym like most people, I went for Cloth, which is the first Titan. It was a total beatdown, as you might have expected. After that was cooking with Brassius. After toasting another Brussels sprout and an olive, the broccoli had something to say. For some of the early fights, for some reason, the AI locks into a Terra boosted move even if it's not very effective, so he went for a Trailblaze instead of a Rock Throw. Now, having lost my starter to a Crit Rock Throw in a previous playthrough, I was pretty paranoid at this point, so I switched into Dunsparce and took him out with a Mud Slap. Unfortunately, this ruined the broccoli. My Terra raid was a Shelter, which was a pretty solid pickup, and my next fight was Bombardier, the second Titan. I figured my best strategy would be to spam Ancient Power and just hope for Omni boosts. We will have to switch after this one, unless we get the proc. If we get the proc, then we can stay in because we'll be able to tank it. Oh, I'm gonna be honest, that one stings. Crocalor ended things with an Incinerate. I basically completely relied on Arvin for the second part and got out without any more losses, but missing out on getting to use Dunsparce has to be one of my life's biggest regrets. He has a sick dog, and he's trying to find the herb to save his sick dog. Not crying, you are? Dude, that's so sad. What a sweet story. Now, later Starfalls are a lot more difficult than this, but the first one, Giacomo, is pretty easy. The Starmobile is a machine. Literally. But between Krogunk and Crocalor, we had things handled. Now, it was time for some more encounters, and I was particularly excited about picking up Flipper the Finizen, as well as a few more evolutions, and it was time for a rival fight, which is barely worth covering. One hit, switch, one hit, and on to Iona. Dazzle your audience with your skills and rack up those subscriptions. Brother, I've got like 6 viewers probably. All right, time to get 7. Hell yeah, let's go. The early fight went pretty smoothly. Watchroll gets fried. I pivot into Houndoom for another knockout, but when I switched into Sunflora to take on Bellybolt, I got paralyzed. No biggie, I just need a couple hits at most to get the kill, right? Right? Okay, 1 paralysis, no big deal. All right, 2 in a row. That's some bad 3. Oh my god, please show some signs of life. Is this revenge for your name? After selling my soul to get back in the good graces of RNG, I took out Bellybolt and realized this was going to be a tough endgame. Hoping she'd go for a charge beam after terastallizing, I stayed in, and that was the last thing Gross the Sunflora ever did. Rest in piss. At this point, I sent in Raichu to get off a couple Arie impulses and then switched into Steve and Jesus Christ, Iono, relax! So, then I switched into Krogunk and spammed Drain Punch and Sucker Punch for the win. Smash the subscribe button. My raid encounter was a Shroomish, and I rolled a Choodle, which I was pretty stoked to add to the team. Then I rolled an Azumarill, which I knew would be an insane addition, even if maybe it'd be a little bit difficult to catch him right now. What's the worst that could happen? How could you be so toxic? But that wasn't all. Another play rough, another fatality. At least this confirmed to me that this was probably a huge power Azumarill, so the trades would probably be worth it in the end. After a quick evolution spree, I was ready to take on Mela, and I had a plan. Stall out the drought and chip damage little bits in between so I could go into the Starmobile fight with a pretty equal playing field. With the leftovers on Roadkiller the Dreadnought, I did exactly that, not even risking crits because of his shell armor ability. The Starmobile came out and hit me for a massive 9 damage overheat, and the rest was was history. Well, if it ain't Charlos, what are you doing here?
We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
Next, Steve absolutely eviscerated the Titan Earthworm, and we had some real momentum on our side. Boss Steve is definitely getting better. We still got 2 more ibs to go. Hope you stick it out until we're done. I am here until the bitter end, my friend. I will make your dog feel good. That came out wrong. I evolved Shroomish into Breloom and then took on Kofu, who was extremely easy. Some of the mid-game fights are total pushovers compared to the early game, but it picks back up, don't worry. I picked up a Toadstool that I immediately evolved, and a Whiscash, which looked really clutch for our next fight, Atticus. I had complete faith that Whiscash would carry us through the fight that ended my last run, crushing everything in its path.
Oh, that was some damage. Oh, and it flinched.
You son of a I want you to keep in mind that I didn't calc a single thing for this entire playthrough, so I had no idea that Whiscash was going to get wrecked. Luckily, I had a backup plan with my main crew. Send in Raichu, get off a couple charms to nuke its attack, and then use some pivots to safely get my Dreadnought in for an Earthquake, which did end up getting the kill. Expecting a Mud Slap, I switched into Breloom to get a Leech Seed setup, but was absolutely blindsided with a Sludge Wave. I do get the Leech Seed setup before Breloom bites the dust, rest in peace. Then switch in Toedscruel, which probably was the right move all along, spamming Mud Shot until eventually Muck falls. This Starmobile is absolutely terrifying. Immediately it goes for a Noxious Torque that did a ton of damage, and I went for a Screech, hoping the defense drops would be enough to save my run. Toedscruel falls, and I switch in Raichu hoping for maybe a single charm, but it outspeeds and kills before I can land it. I switch in Roadkiller thinking my run is over, and he goes for his only neutral move, Spin Out, which does a lot of damage and reduces his speed by a lot. After another spin out, I go for an Earthquake, and at -4 speed, I roll the dice, hoping he'd outspeed for the last Earthquake, and he did! Honestly, that fight alone might be one of the most intense fights I've ever had in a Nuzlocke.
Jeez, dude, the team got obliterated. Oh my god.
I finally get to see my boy Steve in his final form, as well as evolving Foamy into Lurantis. I also picked up a Misdreavus and found a Duskstone to evolve it with, and it couldn't have been more perfectly timed because our next fight was at the normal gym, which I had a pretty sick strategy for, if I don't say so myself. I am saying so myself. It was a pretty dope strategy, my dude.
Well, at least we have our foreheads in common.
So I immediately took out Kamala, which wasn't a problem for Dreadnought, then switched to Miss Magius as soon as the Dunsparce came in. The Dunsparce literally can't hit Miss Magius apart from paralyzing it with Glare, so it was an easy +6 to get, and then a Power Gem put him away with no problem. Then Larry gets cheered on by the audience around us, finding his inner self-confidence, amping up the anime protagonist energy, getting ready to sweep through us with his normal boost as Staraptor. And he's dead. Nimona challenged us to a fight right after, and it was mostly a total beatdown, with the only scary moment being a near death right at the very end. I caught a Gyarados, a Glalie, a Slowpoke, and evolved Finizen into Palafin before starting the 6th gym.
You want to know the exact energy going on right now? Do you want to know this energy?
And explore all that Walmart Land has to offer.
The slow walk on the stage. The one person. Yeah, Walmart Land, let's go.
What's up, everybody? It's Critical. Today we're gonna be doing a Pokemon battle.
Now, this was a gym that I was uniquely set up for, specifically with Houndoom. Houndoom is mostly a special attacker, but we can make an exception for Beat Up, a dark type move that hits 6 times if you have a full team. So the gym test was a cakewalk.
Yeah, baby!
Since the Rhyme fight is a double battle, I had to do some more thinking about my strategy. Toxtricity is no joke if you're unprepared. So here's what I did. Turn 1, I sent out Gyarados to intimidate both of them, since they'd both be using physical moves given the chance. I beat up Mimikyu and took it out with a Waterfall. Then on turn 2, I beat up Houndstone for a 1-hit KO, and I crunched Banette for the same. Spreading this out over 2 turns meant that Toxtricity came in alone, and with a final beat up, the fight was over. Iron Shreds went down like my subscriber count when I posted this video, and I was off to catch more Pokemon before the next set of fights. I wasn't prepared for this, though. Let's go! Welcome to the team, buddy. Oh, that's such a cool shiny, too. Sick. What a day. What a day. Next up was the 7th gym. Oh, please, I should be the one thanking you. Anyway, I bet you could use a little warming up before you take on the gym, huh? So apparently next up was actually a Nemona fight that I was not prepared for at all. I quickly pivoted to Dreadnought and took out Lycanroc with an EQ, then switched into Lurantis to tank a Spark. Lurantis took out Pikachu with a couple Petal Blizzards, and I switched Floatzel into a Dragon Pulse, which did a lot more damage than I thought it would. I went for an Ice Fang and got a lucky flinch before taking her down. Knowing a Flower Trick was coming up next, I pivoted to Skeledirge and dropped a Flamethrower to low HP, completely forgetting that this activated Overgrow, which then killed my Skeledirge. Knowing that I couldn't risk losing Houndoom before the upcoming gym, and completely forgetting the Terra Aqua Jet I could have gone for immediately, I also tried attacking with and ended up having to sack my Lurantis before dropping the Aqua Jet on the switch in and taking out Meowscarada. But the damage had been done. We made it out alive, but these are some massive casualties. Evolving Mastiff and Flittle into Mabostiff and Espathra made me forget all about losing my starter, though. Might be huffing the copium on that one a little bit, but what are you gonna do? Hi, name's Gwyneth Paltrow. CEO of Goop. I'm a professional con woman. I had big plans for Turnip, starting with the Terra beat up to take out Fairy Giraffe, followed by a pivot to Klefki to set up Paralysis, and then go for a Flash Cannon. It was 100% going for a Psychic at that point, so I got a free switch into Mabostiff to go for a Crunch and get the kill. Espathra also went down to a Crunch, and then I switched in Klefki to tank a Moonblast, which it just barely does, then go for a Thunder Wave, which also manages to land. Jingle the Klefki ate a Petal Blizzard as its last meal, and a couple Shadow Balls from Miss Magius were enough to put away Florges for good. You are not one of the Elite Four. If I get swept by this kid, I will quit Pokemon forever. Then I rolled and caught most of my encounters for the rest of the game, and there were a bunch, so I'm gonna run through them really quick to get you up to speed. Igglybuff, Umbreon, Grumpig, Dolliv, Trudel, Go-Go, Knucklesack, Bergmine, Hollow, Spider. Out of every Pokemon, I think this is maybe my least favorite of the entire generation. Okay. What? We lost the encounter. Oh no, guys. I also picked up some solid evolutions, and it was time to take on Grusha. Dreadnought starts with a perfect Rock Slide Oko, and then I bait an Earthquake into Gyarados for a solid Intimidate, which baits out an Icicle Crash, so I pivot into Floatzel to hit it for almost no damage. But not only that, I gave it a Snowball, so it boosts its attack a stage, and then the next turn I go for a Bulk Up, and then crush Beartic the turn after with a Brick Break. So Titan went down to a couple more Brick Breaks, and then I crack Altaria with what I thought was one final Brick Break, fully expecting Floatzel to bite the dust. But she survives, and I'm able to take out Altaria with a final Brick Break for the road. Oh my god, is he dead? Why? I want to take a picture. It would have been really funny if I was like, yo, I found this dead Palmy on the ground outside school, dude. For the Fairy Starfall fight, I needed another Steel type if I could get one, and it just so happens you can get a Berserker for free by going back and finishing one of your classes. I evolved it and Dolliv, and then set into the 4th Team Star base. I completely missed the fact that Azumarill has Bounce, so I had to pivot to Dreadnought right away, and he actually managed to dodge it anyways. I went for a Poison Jab for a ton of damage, poisoned Azumarill, and then tanked an Aqua Tail. Just to get Palafin transformed, I switched him in and then Flip turned out, which also baited out a Play Rough into my Quillfish for barely any damage. The poison did just enough to take Azumarill down, and Ortega sent in Wigglytuff, who immediately got vaporized by another Poison Jab. Dotspun came out and hit us with a critical hit Crunch and got the defense drop. Then we failed to take him out with a 3rd Poison Jab, so I had to switch. I brought in Berserker, who tanked it nicely, and then took him out with a Fake Out followed by an Iron Head. I didn't know what the Starmobile was going to use, so I switched into Gyarados for an Intimidate, then decided to trade damage for a few turns before switching into Palafin, and then Jet Punching twice for the win. On my way around the map, I ran into a full-odds shiny Go-Go, which was a great addition to the team for reasons we'll get into later. 2 final Titans stood in my way, Dondozo and Tatsugiri. Dozo 1 went down to a couple Horn Leeches from our new Go-Go, and Dozo 2 went down with not too much to say, but Giri threw hands with a Muddy Water against my newly Terra'd Azumarill to do a ton of damage before going down to a Play Rough. You did your best, bud. Is he gonna kill him? This is the kind of narrative conclusion that I like to see. I've been searching so long for a way to reach you, because no one else can get into my lab but you. You're a piece of shit. Dad forgot return. And after some strategizing and training, I decided to take on the final Starfall boss, Arie. Toxic Rogue got OHKO'd by a Brave Bird, and I thought a Brave Bird would take out Annihilate too, but I was mistaken. Rest in peace, Flea. I switched in Gyarados and went for a crunch, not before taking some big damage from a Rage Fist. Then Arie brought out Passimian. Baiting out a Rock Tomb, I switched in Metacham, who had to eat a close combat to take him out with a Zen Headbutt. I switched into Grumpig to tank a Dragon Pulse, and then Terra into Fairy to bait out a Dark Pulse for barely any damage. Lucario barely lived a Psychic, and then threw out an Aura Sphere for a tiny chunk of damage before going down. Last up, we have the final literal Starmobile, raring for vehicular homicide, so I switched into Miss Magius to dish out some damage with Psychic. Spin out did about a third of my HP, and then Psychic cracked her for around 40%, and in an insanely clutch move, Miss Magius dodges the second spin out. Another Psychic did a ton more damage, the next spin out didn't crit, and then a third Psychic was all we needed to do to send Arie packing.
Close combat. Nice. This is a good one to have. You know what would be really nice to teach this to is my Hawlucha. The try did any of the big boss? It's none other than me. No way!
My final raid Pokemon was a Corvisquire, and I was finally able to evolve my Rufflet into Braviary.
I honestly never thought I'd see the day.
Some strategizing later, I took on Clavel, and to say I was nervous about his team would be an understatement, but I was still confident we'd pull through. I flip turn for a little damage on a Rangaroo, and then switch between Pokemon until he stops going for Yawn. Then a beat up finally was enough to take him out. He switches in Houndoom at this point, and I wasn't totally sure why, or what move he'd use as a result. Rolling the dice on a Thunderfang, I switched into Flipper, and got off lucky with only taking a little damage from a Sludge Bomb. Jet Punch OHKO'd the Angry Dog, and then a Mama Snow came out, so I switched in Berserker to get a massive Iron Hat off as soon as possible. It set up Aurora Veil and then hit me with a Blizzard for a decent chunk of damage, but my Iron Head still did over half HP. Blizzard hit again for a ton more damage, but my second Iron Head was enough to finally put a Mama Snow away for good. Poltegeist came in next, and I decided to switch into a Azumarill to hopefully tank the hit pretty well, but Shadow Ball hit a lot harder than expected. Still, I was able to tank another Shadow Ball the next turn and get off some solid damage with Liquidation, so things were looking good. I didn't have a great answer for the last bit of HP, so I chanced a crit and was able to get a Jet Punch off for the finish. Then Amoonguss came out, and my plan went into motion. You see, Gogon has the Sap Sipper ability, which absorbs grass-type attacks and turns them into attack boosts. And I purposefully had a Water type when it came out to bait out a Giga Drain. As expected, I got the Sap Sipper boost and was able to get a 2-hit KO with Aerial Ace. Quacklevault came out, and I knew the only way I'd get out without more losses was rolling the dice one final time, hoping I don't get hit with an Ice Spinner and lose my shiny new Gogoat, and
I'm feeling Deathless Clavel, baby. I'm feeling Deathless Clavel. Ready for it. Let's fucking go! Yeah, baby! Oh! Oh! Whoa! Go GOAT, my dude! The GOAT!
one boring training montage later, we were ready to take on the Elite Four, starting with Rika. In maybe an act of revenge for how my Whiscash let me down back in the Atticus fight, I crushed hers with a Leaf Blade. Then I had to do some switching around because Camerupt kept going for Yawns. Eventually, Gyarados was able to Waterfall for the kill, with Donphan coming out in her place. I switched out and broke Sturdy with Slowbro, and then Gyarados came back in to take her out. Dugtrio switched in and went for a Sandstorm, while I switched in Arboliva, and after getting flinched for a turn, I got the one hit with Energy Ball. Rika's ace, Clodsire, came out and Terra'd and can't do anything except for hit us with Toxic and Protect. A couple Ice Fangs were all I needed to take her out from there. Next up is Poppy, and I had a foolproof plan for this fight. Sash my Houndoom and go for a nasty plot, then sweep with Flamethrower. Absolutely foolproof. Completely. Unbeatable.
No! No! I didn't know you had 30!
All according to plan. I get the kill with a flip turn and then bring out Berserker to face Tinkaton. Then, expecting a Brick Break, I switched to Gyarados for the Intimidate, and you can see how this is going to go from here. I got her to -2 attack and then went for a close combat and got the win.
I would like to punt this toddler like a football. That is what I would like to do. Hello there. It's me, Larry. I love you, Larry!
Third up to bat was Larry, who immediately got wrecked with an Ice Fang. Staraptor came in and threatened a Brave Bird, so I switched into Cloyster to tank, and then Dragapult came in for free because he went for a close combat. I go for Dragon Darts, thinking it'll kill, but it barely doesn't, and he gets off a Brave Bird for a lot of damage. Recoil takes him out, and Altaria gets teed up for another Dragon Darts and another kill. Now, Oricorio, I didn't have a real answer for. I switch in Azumarill to bait out a Revelation Dance into my Terra Fairy, and he goes for a Teeter Dance. No biggie, I say to myself, knowing that I just need to hit through it once to get the KO. Okay, next time.
Okay.
I send out Flipper and Flip turn into Slowbro, knowing that I need to sack another Pokemon to get Flipper back out, and that's exactly what I had to do. Flipper comes back out and drops an Ice Punch to close out the kill, and Terra Flying Flamico comes in to do some real damage. And just like his original gym battle, I absolutely smoked his Terra before it could land a single attack. The last member of the Elite Four is Hassel, who hilariously was not a hassle to take care of. I Terra Ghost with Dragapult to remove my Dragon weakness just in case something doesn't go down to Dragon Darts, but one by one, every last member of his team went down in one hit.
It's happening. It's happening.
I want to see the true measure of your talent.
Okay. I have no talent, but I've got stubborn determination. We'll see if that's enough.
Next up was the champion, and Gita's team might not be set up properly or really as imposing as previous gens, but it still packs quite a punch if you're not prepared for it. I lead Flipper and switch into Berserker to tank Illumina Crash, and then get some chip damage and heal with a fake out and leftovers. Espathra barely survives an Iron Head, and I'm forced to switch into Mabosstiff. Then, knowing I'll get hit with a resisted Dazzling Gleam, I switch back into Berserker, survive a critical hit, and then fake out for the kill. Avalugg tries to Earthquake a flying fish like a total dumbass, and I get a free switch into Flipper, who takes out Avalugg with a few Drain Punches. Gogoat comes out and gets flattened with an Ice Punch, King Gambit jumps into a Drain Punch, and then I flip turn on Velusa and bring out Mabosstiff, expecting a Psycho Cut. Crunch gets the KO, and Gita's ace, Glamora, switches in. I switch in Flipper and get ready for a battle of the gods. Glamora starts us off with a Dazzling Gleam, and then next turn we grab a critical hit Drain Punch to bring him to a Sliver. One more Jet Punch seals the deal, and we become champions of Paldea. A normal Nuzlocke might stop here, but I decided to go all the way, so our next fight was Arvin. Now, just some context here. If I used my same team from the Elite Four, I would have out-leveled my level cap by the time I got to Nemona, and ended up using a subpar team for a lot of the rest of the game. So I had to come up with a strategy with the B-team, which hinged around my borderline invincible meta.
Bro, there's a 1 in 100. That's a 1 in 100. I replaced its oh god. Oh god. Oh my god, I replaced this item. Absolute unmitigated disaster.
So Metachamp died immediately, which absolutely blew up my entire strategy for this fight. I switch in Braviary and wreck greet him with a superpower. Then I switched in Arboliva to tank a hit from Garganacl and take him out with an Energy Ball. I switch in Floatzel against Scovillain to tank a Fire Blast, then Braviary to tank an Energy Ball, and super fun fact here, Scovillain outspeeds Braviary, so I get burned. Air Slash doesn't kill, unfortunately, and to get Miss Magius out on the field, I need to sack him, so that's exactly what I did. A quick switch into Miss Magius and a Power Gem is all I need to take out Scovillain, who's replaced by Toadscruel. I go for a Mystical Fire, and he puts me to sleep with his Spore, which is followed by possibly the most ridiculous interaction I've ever had in a Pokemon game.
We just have to hope we wake up, that we get like a turn 2. Oh, you missed. How? If you can listen to me because I shout, then wake up. Brother, how did you listen to me to move? What? What? What was that exchange? Whoa. Whoa.
After that heroic sleepwalking, our luck ran out, and a couple Power Whips put Miss Magius down for good. I switch in Floatzel and go for Liquidation to kill, following that up with a critical hit Brick Break against Cloyster. We took a little bit of damage from Liquidation, and a second Brick Break is enough to take him out. Arvin's pathetic, dumb, not shiny Mabosstiff switches in and gets rocked with a Brick Break, but unfortunately also takes out Floatzel with a Terra Crunch. I switch in Berserker for a Fake Out, then switch in Arboliva thinking I have this thing won easy with another Fake Out, then get hit with a Crunch that activates Seed Sower, creating grassy terrain and healing Mabosstiff out of range to get killed by another Fake Out. Absolutely freak out because I thought I'd lost the Nuzlocke right then and there. Sacrifice Arboliva, go for the Fake Out with my final Pokemon, fail to knock Mabosstiff out, then get hit by a Crunch instead of a Fire Fang, letting me get the final hit with an Iron Head and win the battle. I actually might have lost my mind if I lost the Nuzlocke and had none of my main overpowered team on my actual losing team.
The bully hunted becomes the bully hunter.
The final Starfall boss is Penny, and she's the most inconsistent final boss in the game in my opinion. Umbreon, Leafeon, and Flareon all went down without much trouble, but when Jolteon switched in, things got dicey. I switched in Go-Go to tank a Thunder, which it actually avoids completely. Now, I assumed that Jolteon would use Pin Missile here because it's super effective on my Grass-type Go-Go, and I switch it to my Tera Electric Corviknight to bait out a Thunder and then do some serious damage on the Tera. But she went for a Thunder instead, which absolutely vaporized my prize Steel Bird. I switch in a Spathra and go for a Terra Lumina Crash, but Jolteon lands a Thunder and paralyzes us first, and the paralysis stops us from attacking. I assume I'm forced to sack a Spathra to get a fresh switch at this point and bring back Go-Go to spam Horn Leech and win. Vaporeon came out and immediately died on impact. Her last Pokemon is a Terra Fairy Sylveon, and I switch into Grafaiai, tank a Moonblast, and then hit a few poison jabs through Baby Doll Eyes to take her out.
Get out of my face. Get out of my face. You're dead to me.
These last couple fights are the real deal, and because I used B-teams for the Arvin and Penny fights, I was able to use my main crew against Nemona. I start with Flipper against Lycanroc and get outsped and hit with a Stone Edge, and I'm really lucky it didn't crit because it easily would have taken him out. I flip turn and then take out Lycanroc, and then switch to Berserker to bait out a Pawmod as her next Pokemon, which works perfectly. She goes for a close combat, and I get a free switch to Dragapult, who I then U-turn with, setting into motion a switch kill. I go for a Fake Out, then switch for free into Dragapult, then U-turn, rinse and repeat until Pawmot went down. The Dunsparce came in and tried to set up, but I just went for Dragon Darts until he went down too. Earthworm switched in next, and I was completely prepared for him with a Fire Blast that took him low, and then Dragon Darts to finish the job. Staying in because I knew Goodra was coming next, and I'd be able to use Dragon Darts on it as well. Meowscarada came out, and I was prepared for that too. I go for a 4-time super effective U-turn, and then switch to Mabostive, expecting a Shadow Claw. Then I switch to Go-Goat, expecting a Flower Trick, Absorb it, and then Aerial Ace for the win.
This game really needed voice acting. It would have been so good to have like actual voices behind these characters.
I was pretty stoked at that point, decided I was going to beat the entire game that night, so I set off on the way home a few minutes later. I would go through each Paradox fight, but they were all pretty easy, and I just had to juggle Pokemon to make sure nothing over-leveled for the final fight.
You have become a formidable trainer. Now use the strength that you have gained to destroy the dream Turo once cherished. I'm 10. I'm supposed to be flicking boogers across the classroom right now, all right? If you try to stop the machine, I will most likely attack you. I am an adult man and you are a child, so I will beat the shit out of you. Goosebumps.
Now this fight is easily one of the best post-game fights I can remember from this franchise, and I was really excited to take it on. I lead Flipper and go for a flip turn, not quite getting the kill, and then switch to Dragapult to tank the discharge. I had him holding a Cherry Berry just in case he got paralyzed, but it was good to not need it this early in the fight. A Dragon Dart took out Iron Moth with ease, and then Iron Jugular switched in. Knowing a Dark Pulse was heading my way, I switched to Mabostive, tanked it, and then took him out with a couple play roughs. Iron Hands was definitely going to go for a Fake Out on the switch, so I switched to Gyarados for the Intimidate, then to Dragapult to tank the Thunder Punch, then to Berserker to tank the Iron Head, and you can see where this is going again. I chip damage with Berserker for a bit, and then I go for a Psychic Fangs with Dragapult and get the kill. Iron Bundle is a total glass cannon of a Pokemon. Luckily, I have Berserker. No! This really threw a wrench into my plans. Hoping for a quick thaw, I waited, and eventually Iron Bundle went for a Water Pulse and got a massive crit. But in that final turn, he thawed using his Fiery Determination, and I was able to keep him around for a little later in the fight. Fully expecting a Water Pulse at this point, I switched to Gyarados and freeze dry.
What? How did you... Well,
I switched back to Berserker to get a little damage and healing with Fake Out, and then realized Berserker needed to be sacked for me to have any chance of taking on Iron Valiant at all. Proud of you, my boy. I switched into Flipper and rolled the dice with a Drain Punch, and we got the kill. Iron Thorns came out and was definitely going to Thunder Punch, so I switched to Go-Go to tank it and O-Code with an Earthquake. Turo's last Pokemon is Iron Valiant, holding a Booster Energy, which boosts its already insanely high attack stat even higher. I had a couple possible plans for Valiant, but most of them relied on Berserker being there, so I only had one shot. Go-Goat was holding a Kebia Berry to resist Poison Jab, and I was completely confident Turo would go for it. I didn't even know if it'd make a difference because, again, I didn't calc anything in this entire playthrough. But I knew that was my one backup plan to hopefully get a solid hit off against Valiant before switching in Flipper and then closing out the kill with a priority move. And Valiant went for a Brick Break and missed. Leaf Blade did over half HP, and then on the final turn, he goes for a spirit break for some reason, which I managed to survive, and the greatest goat of all time went for one last leaf blade, sealing Giga Chad's fate forever. But we're not done. I decided to really take it all the way and continue the Nuzlocke through the gym leader rematches and the Ace tournament. The gym leaders weren't really worth talking about, but the Ace tournament was actually really fun, even if I did have a few levels on the competition. This concludes with the final fight in the game, and arguably the most difficult, the Gita rematch. And she definitely upped her game for this one. I lead Flipper and immediately tear a flip turn into Mabostiff for free damage and a switch. Then go for a crunch and a Spathra falls. Go-Go comes in and I switch into Grafai, while Go-Go goes for a bulk up. Uh-oh. I go for a U-turn, expecting some heavy damage to start stacking up, so getting off an Intimidate seemed like a no-brainer. Go-Go goes for a resisted play rough on Grafai and does a decent chunk of damage. Then next turn we go for a poison jab for a ton of damage, but get taken out with a Zen headbutt. I bring in Flipper to use Drain Punch, thinking it'll easily kill because of my extremely high attack, completely forgetting the fact that this Pokemon also has a massive defense buff from Bulk Up, so it survives and cracks me with a Horn Leech for huge damage and a huge heal. I'm scarfed at this point, so I have to switch out, and I go into Go-Go to absorb the Horn Leech. I switch back to Mabostiff to get off another Intimidate, and then to Dreadnought a kill with Poison Jab, but he barely survives. And what happens next was truly unbelievable.
You've got to... Roadkiller toughed it out, seriously? Oh my god. Clutch. Roadkiller, my boy. My boy since day one. That's what I got. I gotta go for it. I just have to go for it. Oh. Okay, I guess we got a high roll. Oh no, we learned the crit. Awesome, dude. Roadkiller. What a legend, this guy. We're definitely gonna outspeed. We almost just go for the rock slide, sack Roadkiller. Like risk a freeze or something. Just go for the flinch. Flinch, baby! Dodge? Oh my god, Roadkiller. What is happening? What is happening here? What is... Dude, Roadkiller is cracked. I can't believe this. He flinches! Roadkiller survives! Oh my god! Dude! What?
Now, it would have been a better idea objectively to sack Roadkiller after this, but something in me just would not let that happen. The little turtle that could absolutely showed a level of heart and courage I've never seen in a Pokemon Nuzlocke before. After the death of his father in the last run, Roadkill truly became the Roadkiller, and I was hell-bent on letting him see the final moments of this Nuzlocke. So I switched into Umbreon and stalled the hell out of King Gambit for a mind-numbing 5-minute back and forth before finally taking it out.
And... boom! Imagine being Gita right now. Yeah, she's just like, really? I gave you your championship and you just pulled this?
Velusa switched in and hit us really hard with a critical hit liquidation, but we hit really hard back with a Dark Pulse. Next turn, Umbreon survived another liquidation and took her out with yet another Dark Pulse. Glamora switches in and Terras before taking out Umbreon, and then I switch in Flipper and go for a Drain Punch for massive damage. Glamora goes for a Terra Blast, which hit us just as hard, but by then it didn't matter. One final Drain Punch center packing and won us the Ace tournament, winning us the hardest Nuzlocke in Pokemon Violet.
Yeah, we found him. Okay, I'm recording a log right now. Hello, my name is... I'm the researcher at the head of experiment 7667529. Subject has been located. Acquisition phase begins in the coming months. After a long and extensive search period, it has become apparent that only one vessel is suitable for our needs. It is expected that there will be some resistance as we move into Phase 1, but after consulting with the foremost experts in the field, we have several fallback plans should our initial approach fail. This experiment is expected to run upwards of 1 year, during which I will periodically log updates on its status.